Good afternoon and welcome back to the Same Business Different Day podcast. I am here. I'm Zeke Corley and I'm here with my co-host Alyssa Lee Good. It's good to see you. It's only been once a week now. I wish I could see you more often, but at least we get to hang out once a week. So I'm glad you're here. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Good.
Glad to be here.
Yeah.
It's nice to see you once a week.
Okay.
It'd be nice to see you more than once a week.
Oh, yeah, well,
we're busy people.
I got to come up to the winery
right.
and sip some wines. That's what I need to do. Next, I will also reintroduce you guys to my business partner and father, Bill Corley, the man that taught me that sleep is what you do on your day off. And when you own your own business, there are very few days off.
I never taught him that there was.
I learned it.
You learn by observation, right?
How you doing, Bob?
I'm good.
Good.
I'm good.
Hi, Pops.
Happy to be here.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
Right on. So today we get to hang out with another special guest. If I've ever called on this man for a meeting, he's always been here and he's always been on time and he's always had a big smile on his face. Most of the time in business, you'll meet with business owners that are uptight, pretentious, and that's understandable. That comes with perception and branding, and people don't want to lose business for appearing a certain way to others. But then there are the rare few that aren't putting on. The type of business person that is comfortable with himself and makes you feel comfortable around him. He's not using you for your time and you're not using him for his. Regardless of your resumes, we treat each other as equals. Today, we're in the presence of just that type of businessman. I'm happy to introduce the Same Business Different Day audience to Don Sando.
All right, I like that applause. Yes. Thank you, Zeke.
Welcome, Don, man.
Thank
I
you, buddy.
appreciate you being here, man. And cheers on your success and more to come. We're hearing some good news about it, so we're going to talk about that a little bit as well. Alyssa, you want to tell them about the rules of the game?
Yeah, so we have a little game we play on our podcast.
Okay.
It's the Same Business podcast. We're going to talk about your business, but we're not going to talk about it right away. First, we're going to get to know you, get to know the tools that you've equipped to become who you are. And then when it feels right, when it feels natural, we'll say, this is what you actually do. But until then, let's just relax and get to know you.
Sounds good. Sounds
Right
good.
on. Early memories. You remember what you wanted to be when you grew up?
My dad always told this story, talking
Okay.
about Bill here.
Mm-hmm.
In fourth grade, I went to him and I said, Dad, who makes more money, a dentist or a priest?
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, a dentist. And I went, okay, and I want to be a dentist. But actually, I never had no interest. So I actually ended up going to the seminary and studying to be a priest.
Okay.
But then there were these things called women that went around, I was like, damn, they are nice. So much for the celibacy priest thing. That was out the window.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I wanted to be, I always told, when I was growing up, I always told my family and everybody that I wanted to be a doctor. And if I really had paid attention to that, I probably would have had more women. Did you have like a leadership early, like mentors at a young age in the house or in the neighborhood around?
My dad was a small business owner, and
okay.
I observed him. He had originally he had an Italian liquor deli,
Wonderful.
and then my grandmother worked in there and made pizza and they sold sauce. And I was like, these people work too freaking hard. It's like you never see them. It's like, oh my God, I don't want to be that. And then when I got in high school, I discovered that I was really good at math. It was easy. I was really good. So I'm like, I want to do something with math once I said that the priest thing is not for me. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up picking electrical engineering as what I wanted to study and go to university for. But one of the things that was interesting about being in the seminary is that in high school I had a 30-minute session with my spiritual director every week. If you can imagine going through high school and meeting with a spiritual director for a half an hour every week, you know, it was like, you learn a lot. You learn a lot, you know, and so that was probably the, you know, the biggest impact on my life about, you know, hey, what are you going to do with your life? What kind of a man are you going to be? All of that kind of stuff was something that he just really, you know, imparted to me.
You kind of working on your core values and beliefs.
Exactly.
Before you were working on
anything. What am I going to do for a living was, you know, it was like more about what kind of a man are you going to be?
Sure.
Now,
Yeah.
now, Don, was this a little city, big city, small town? Where did
So
you
this
grow
is
up at?
L.A.
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. I grew up in L.A. And the high school seminary I went to was in San Fernando Valley.
Mm-hmm. Set us a time period.
So this was in the 60s. So in the 60s. I graduated 1969.
Okay, a lot going on in Los Angeles in 1969. I graduated 68, so I'm a year older.
Okay.
Did you have a place of business, do you remember as a kid, that you just loved to go to? A restaurant, a toy store, a music store?
You know, not really. We didn't, you know, my family was very frugal and, you know, we didn't go out. I mean, you know, I remember once a year we'd go to McDonald's. It was like a big deal. We're going to McDonald's.
Once a year.
Yeah, once a year. We had, you know, it was 4 kids and it was like small business owner and working hard. And,
Yeah.
So and I really didn't have, you know, business wasn't a big, you know.
McDonald's couldn't have tasted any better than an Italian deli, though. You're an Italian deli.
Exactly. My dad was bringing home food from the store all the time, right, you know. Yeah.
Transition for us. Take us from high school to college. Where did you go to school?
So I went to USC, and it was coming out of high school. It was like, well, okay, I'm good at math. I like math. You know, what do you do with a math, right? And so I looked at being a math teacher. I went, well, you know, maybe I'd like that, maybe I wouldn't. But what if I don't want to teach? Then what the heck am I going to do? So somebody said, well, engineering uses a lot of math. So I'm like, I have no idea what an engineer does, but sounds good. I just picked engineering, you know. And, you know, kind of did a little study and went, wow, you know, computers is a thing of the future and so I'll major in computer engineering, you know. And so I actually looked into, I actually started out at Cal State LA, right? And then I kind of come to this realization that I wanted to study both hardware, circuit design, as well as software programming. And I met with my counselor and he went, oh, that's kind of leading edge stuff. You know, we don't do that here. If you want to do that, your choices are stay in Southern California, you know, which I lived at home. I couldn't afford to, you know, live at school. So your choices are Caltech, USC, or UCLA.
Great choices.
Yeah.
Great
so,
choices.
So the school closest to my house was Caltech, right? And any of you watch The Big Bang Theory, you know, so I went there to check it out, and I went, oh, I don't think I'm smart enough for this school. These guys are really nerds. You know? I was like, nah, I don't fit in here. So, and I ruled out UCLA because I lived in, you know, the East San Gabriel Valley, and I was like, I'm driving over to the West, you know, over there every day. That would be insane. So that's how I picked USC. Kind of. So that was it, you know.
But now you weren't going to school necessarily with an entrepreneurial focus, right? You were planning on getting into working at a corporation, or what was the goal when you went to school?
Absolutely. You know, like I said, what I learned from watching my dad was that I did not want to be a small business owner because they work too hard.
That's funny. Alyssa always says she didn't want to be a business owner.
Like, nah. I'm going into corporate America, baby.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
So you went to corporate America.
I did, yeah.
Okay, and what did you do there?
So initially, I worked in aerospace. designing circuits and doing programming. And it was, so I did that for like 4 or 5 years and just said, this is not my personality, because when you design circuits, your satisfaction comes from your circuit working. Everybody's saying, great job, your circuit works. I'm like, that's exciting. And I'm a people person. Where are the heck are the people? I'm sitting on a computer all day long. There's got to
you
be...
chose math.
I know. I was like, yeah, your choice, dude. Oops. So I started looking for, I got to do something different. I mean, I've got all this education and this experience, but so there were some people that told me, well, you should go into sales, and I thought about it and went, okay, now sales is kind of scary because, if you don't sell, you don't get paid.
You don't eat.
And I'm like, oh crap, no, that's scary. That's back to that small business owner thing,
Well, I just wonder though, what do you think somebody saw in you that said, you should do sales?
Well,
you're obviously a people person.
Yeah,
you're a good communicator.
Yeah,
It was base.
It was just that. It was that. I had my neighbors.
But you had to be convincing. You had to be.
Yes.
You must have had that in you too.
Yeah, I do like winning people over, right?
Okay.
And
probably like talking to people.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, and I remember when we moved into a neighborhood and the neighbors would meet me and everything, and then they would, what do you do? And I go, I'm an engineer, and they'd like, no way. There's no way you are an engineer.
You have too much personality.
Yeah, you're like, you're a partier, you're this, you ain't an engineer. Right? So, so anyway, I kind of ruled out sales, but I ended up looking at marketing.
Okay.
And so I had an opportunity at HP in Rancho Bernardo, and their color printer and plotter product line. And the one opening...
Say that again.
Yeah.
That didn't sound easy.
Yeah.
Plotter product line.
Yeah, color printers and plotters, right? So the plotters are the big, huge, things.
Okay.
So they had an opening that they would consider me for, and it was training salespeople. And I'm like, okay, no, sales. No. There's that thing again. Yeah. So that was my first job there, was training salespeople.
Okay.
And but what happened was that salespeople would come to me and say, well, this is the problem, this competitor is doing such and such, or our product is missing this feature or whatever. And then I would want to go solve those problems. It's like, okay, well, we need to fix it. Well, no, you're a sales trainer. Just shut up and go train salespeople. The marketing people do those kinds of things. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, I want to do that. So HB had this great environment where you could switch jobs every 18 months if somebody wanted you. Right. So if you built up a reputation, people go, yeah, I want that guy. I got this project. I'll take that guy on my project. So I got to move around a lot. And so like pretty much every 18 months, I switched responsibilities. And at that product line, we had 125 people in our marketing department. So when you did something in marketing, you became a specialist, right? If you were doing brochures,
sure,
you were doing brochures full time. That's all you did. You didn't, if you were doing promotions in the dealer channel, you were doing promotions in the dealer channel, right? You became an expert on everything related to promotions in the dealer channel. So I moved around a lot, learning different aspects of the business as it relates to marketing. And when I really kind of found my comfort zone, initially it was on product management, which is making current products successful. Then I moved into future product planning, which has like a 1 to 2 year horizon. So you're working on products that you're going to introduce 1 to 2 years from now. And then I got into strategic planning, which is beyond, it's the 3 to 5 year horizon where you're taking everything into account. It's not just product.
Okay.
And that was I was like, this is, because you really felt like you were making a significant impact on the direction of the business.
So now this is your early career, and how many years are we talking about? You went from USC to HP and into this area. And how many years are we talking about?
So I went from USC into aerospace. So that was 5 years in aerospace, and then 10 years at HP.
Okay.
Okay. And then I got recruited away from HP to a smaller high-tech company. So my product line responsibility at HP was $225 million. And then I got recruited away to this company where the business unit was $12 million.
Okay.
So big, but you're the whole show, right? You're everything.
The whole show.
That's
Okay.
right. It's like, okay.
They recruited you though because they saw something in you though.
They recruited me. They were at an interesting crossroads. They had patents that all of their competitors were paying them royalties on, and patents expire after 17 years, and their patents were expiring, and they're like, we don't know what we're going to do after these patents expire. So we need help with strategic planning.
Okay.
So that was why they hired me. So my title was Worldwide Director of Marketing and Sales.
Worldwide. They put worldwide in the front.
Yeah. Don't spend your ass here in San Diego, So initially, and I examined, did my strategic planning thing, examined the marketplace, the competition, the opportunities. I said, your technology, even though it's very mature and patents are expiring, there's still opportunities outside the U.S. 95% of your business is here in the U.S., but, at HP, only 40% of our business was in the U.S., So there's a lot of opportunities. So I, examined, I said, so we should go. I looked at the competition, the customers, and said, we should go first to Europe. The competitor there is vulnerable. I think we can take away a lot of their business. And then after that, we'll go to Asia. And I said, then we'll be competing with companies like Epson and Citizen, and that's going to be a hard road.
Yeah.
But we'll make some inroads. We'll see. So that's what we did. So I spent my first 4 years was nothing but international business development.
And you were with this company for how long?
I was there 10 years also.
Okay. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to move us to
Today.
Okay, to find out who Don is. Okay.
Okay. So what happened at that company is after 4 years of international business development, then we got into acquisitions, right? We acquired a couple of companies, and I thought that, we acquired companies that were flawed, and we thought we could turn them around, right? And I thought, well, to turn a company around, you just create a great strategic plan, and they follow it, and all's good, right? And that's not what happened. Right? We did 2 acquisitions. I worked with the leadership team to create growth plans, and neither one of them executed the plans. And the plans just sat there. And the financials looked miserable as when we bought them. So I was just getting, then one day it hit me. It's like, wow, it's not about having a great plan. It's about, can you execute on a plan?
Sure.
And what does it take? And it really boiled down to, so I looked back at, well, why were we so good at this at HP? What were we doing there that these companies aren't doing? And it just boiled down to leadership. It boiled down to leadership focus, ability to manage employees, all of that stuff.
Okay.
We then got acquired. the acquiring company kept me on for 4 years going, wow, your division is really profitable. What do you do? Well, I do this thing called strategic planning, but we kind of follow it, Oh, teach us how to do that. Okay. So I did that, but it was the same outcome. I'd go to a division of theirs. I'd facilitate the process. I'd come back and nothing was getting executed because people didn't know how to change their daily work habits.
Sure.
To focus on what long-term importance.
Mm-hmm.
So when they moved company headquarters from San Diego to Ithaca, New York, I looked out the window and said,
I'm staying.
Yeah, have a good life, guys. I'll see you in the afterlife.
So then I imagine that's when the entrepreneurial focus came for you, right?
Yeah.
And before I get into this, because I want to reveal, it's about time to reveal what you do, what your business is. But I kind of want to get into just the first time you had a business idea. It couldn't have been this one that's already like super successful. It had to be something like you must have had this entrepreneur. You must have had some ideas of I can do this business and this is going to be great. And then maybe it didn't work out. And why not?
Actually, I didn't really. One of the things that I've discovered about myself is that when it comes to creative new ideas, that's not my
Isn't that
strength.
your wheelhouse?
No, that's not my thing.
Okay.
It's like, I'm like, somebody give me a good idea. I can execute. I can.
come up
We'll
with a
figure
strategy.
out. We'll come up with a strategy. We'll figure out the market. We'll figure out whether this is going to work or not, and we'll make a go of it. But
That's cool.
I was not the guy to come up with the creative.
And you don't have to be, right? And that's what's great. I mean, our listenership is really it's the current business owners, sure, but also the folks that want to be entrepreneurs, that have an idea, don't know how to execute it, or have been given an idea, know how to execute it, but just are a little timid to do that, right? So those are the people that we want to inspire, and we want to interview folks like you to show them, hey, you can do this. You didn't even have to come up with the idea, but yet you still have this, great business, right?
Yeah.
So we want to be inspirational for those folks, and we want them to follow a path like yours, right? So that's why we kind of got into the beginning of who you are and, what that's all about, what you're all about. So now let's reveal.
I was going to say, you may not be the idea man, but Don, he could be the strategy guy.
Right.
Absolutely.
I'm the strategy and execution guy.
There we go.
Strategy by itself is not so valuable.
Yeah. Idea by itself is not so valuable either.
Can't do it without execution.
You're right.
Yeah.
So alongside Jim Sando, Don Sando formed the Strategic Results Group in 2002. A former engineer, teacher, and marketing guru, Don has a special set of skills aimed at turning businesses around and helping them build plans to increase revenues and profits. Don has worked with IBM, Siemens, HP, Citizen, Samsung, Olivetti, and Fujitsu. The Strategic Results Group is armed with experts in consulting and marketing and human resources and technology and sales. Ladies and gentlemen, we're in the presence of a mastermind. I reintroduce you to Don Sando.
There he is.
Where's the applause?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Applause,
I can
please.
throw it in there. There you are. There you go. He likes that applause.
I like that. Yeah.
Okay. Now, Don, we named off, or Zeke just named off all the big companies that you work with. You're here in North County, okay, and you're working with a lot of folks now. I've seen your name at Carlsbad. I've seen your name in Oceanside. I've seen your name in many different places. Okay, when it comes to Chamber of Commerce's, they know you, and they know what you do, and they know how you do it, and the magic that you create. Tell us about some of the smaller things that you're doing, or some of the types of companies that you will work with. I saw your website. I was looking at your website, and I saw that you're working with, a moment ago you told us about something, gave us some religious insight into you, okay? you're working with religious leaders.
Yes, I have. Yeah. So one of the things that, when I started my business, I realized that there was two values that I could bring. One was planning, strategy, and the other was leadership, because that was the key. I had some friends that had become priests, right? And so I actually went to them and said, hey, went to one of them and said, I know a lot of pastors, ministers, and some of their decisions are not very well thought out, do you think that, so a couple of things, I said, I think there's a need. Do you agree that there's a need for leadership development for pastors? Number two, would there be an interest? Would they be willing to sign up for it? Number three, would they pay? Because I ain't doing this for free. And so this guy said, yes, yes, and yes. I'll just to prove it to you, I'll sign up to be your first client. So I've actually, over the course of my company here, I've worked with more than 100 different pastors in San Diego and Orange County.
Wonderful.
But it's still only a small piece of my business, right? Because my primary focus is really on and I've worked with several other nonprofits as well. Mm-hmm. But, but those combined are like 20-25% of my business. The majority are for the for-profits, where I'm working with business owners really trying to improve their business and turn it into what they envisioned, what they started, but discovered it was a lot more difficult to get there than they realized.
Okay. Now, we met you at a chamber meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter which chamber it was, but because you're attached to so many different chambers around here that we don't need to identify which one it was. But you're doing a lot of work with chambers. What are you doing? What are you doing? I mean, how do you help chamber members become better business people?
It's primarily through, it depends on the size of the business, right? So like my sweet spot are really companies with 20 or more employees where they have a level of management, because if there's less than 10 employees, if there's 5 or 6 or something, usually the business owner can handle it, or they think they can, right? But once they start hiring a couple of managers or promoting people into management, then all of a sudden they realize it's outside their span of control. So that's really where my sweet spot is, to come in and help them with their management team and then also with their employees. Not to say that I don't have clients that only have 1 or 2 employees, or even sole proprietors, but my sweet spot are really those with 20 or more. So like I facilitate a CEO peer group, right? And so I have 9 members in that group, and they vary from the smallest as, I think, 6 employees, and the 2 largest each have 165. Right. And there's some at 45 and some at 65 and, all over the place. But it's really that kind of a, so that's kind of like a mastermind, advisory board kind of a group. We meet monthly and advise each other on how to address whatever challenges
That's a good
facing.
group too. And we're going to talk about that. I'm really interested in that. You were back in 2009. You did some consulting for Forbes. I was reading about that. What was that?
Well, that was Forbes had decided to. They wanted to get into the entrepreneurial space. Forbes is much more corporate America. That's their brand, and they wanted to get more into the entrepreneurial space. So they created a contest called America's Most Promising Companies. Mm-hmm. Right, and they partnered. They licensed a technology from a venture capital firm up in Irvine, mm-hmm. and this firm had created what I describe as a business plan scoring system. And Forbes licensed it for the contest. So you went through their scoring system, you put in your business plan, and you got a score, and then based on that, you got your ranking in the Forbes contest.
Just based on the business plan alone. You didn't have to stand in front of anyone,
Correct.
no presentation, nothing like that.
Exactly.
Just looking at the plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, it was, if you had everything all the questions already answered in your business plan, it would take you 2.5, 3 hours to complete the process. And if usually they would ask you questions and you would go, oh crap, I don't know the answer. I got to go find that. Right?
Mm-hmm.
The scoring system had a 1,200 point scoring system. And if you scored above 1,000, you were entered into the contest. And if you scored below 1,000, you were referred to my firm to get your score up.
Oh, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
You couldn't lose.
Exactly. Right. So they would, and I would get the report of their score and where they did well and where they had weaknesses. And then I could create a plan for them to say, here's, what we're going to have to fix. Here's how long it's going to take and what you're going to have to do. And then, next year you can re-enter the contest, but your score will now be up.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. So what are the keys to a good business plan?
Well, their scoring system had 12 elements to it. Right? And I'm not sure I can give them all. Right.
Secret.
Secret. Right.
I get
it.
But, but they were also done from the perspective of an investor. Mm-hmm. So an investor had specific questions. They would want to know about your IP. So what patents, what proprietary information do you have? Which mom and pop businesses, I don't worry about that, and they would want to know, about a lot of different things about your business. But the, some of the keys that, where I found that people consistently had not spent enough time on was really evaluating and assessing the competition and really having a very clear strategy at how to position themselves relative to the competition. And you always knew they were in trouble because it was all a multiple choice thing. One of the, something about your competition, and if one of the choices was, we don't have any. And if they pick that, you went, oh, they're in trouble. They are in trouble. You all have competition. You just don't realize it. Or our competition is crap. We can beat everybody.
Right.
Yeah. So, and then it would be about that, really understanding the competition, really understanding what the customer's needs were and trends in that area. Having a clear way to a compelling case for why you were better, right? And then the other thing they would always evaluate was the management team. So, what's your management team? What's their background?
Right.
Yeah. They had a very interesting question on that scoring thing, which was you had to list all of your managers on your management team. Then you had to, the owner would do this, obviously confidentially. You had to score each one on a scale of 1 to 10.
Oh, no.
Are they a keeper? Are they, are they a superstar? Where are they? And I'm like, okay, we could publish this. And that guy would be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. That's tough. I'm really trying to figure out, though. I mean, when I've done a couple of business plans, right, in my life, and the competition part is always the most fun part for me. The research involved with that is important, right? And, it helps you figure out where do you locate your business? It helps you figure out your demographic. How do you differentiate yourself from other businesses? So I imagine that you've come across a lot of complications, that businesses are facing. What are some of the most common and what are some of the most unique?
Typically the clients I work with, they don't have, it's not like HP. Well, we got, let's spend $75,000
Yeah, they
market
don't have the
research. Yeah,
unlimited-
sure, right.
resources.
Yeah, exactly. So I would usually involve all of their salespeople in the assessing the competition. Questions like, so who do you compete with? If you're doing a proposal, who else is proposing, right? What's your win ratio? How many times do you win?
Mm-hmm.
And why do you win? Or if you lose, why do you lose? Right? So using the people on the front line, a lot of times management would have their own perceptions and they wouldn't be accurate because they're not doing day-to-day sales and they're not, and so we would incorporate that into, okay, here's the real picture out there, right? There's a great book by a young woman named Janie Smith called Creating Competitive Advantage. And, it talks about this whole thing, right?
Awesome.
And so I don't know if we have time, but, I remember working with a concrete company out in Poway, right? And so we're going through the process and they say, okay, I say, who's the decision maker? Who are your customers and who's the decision maker? Well, 80% of their business, the customers were general contractors working on large projects that need a concrete sub. Okay. And I go, so why, what do they want? What's important to them? And they would all go, price.
Right,
Like,
of
okay,
course.
yeah, everybody says that, but do they always buy the lowest price? No. Nobody does. I mean, actually, the studies show that only 10% of the people always buy the lowest price. There's actually 5% that always buy the most expensive, but 85%,
funny.
somewhere in the middle.
That takes me a little bit to back to McDonald's, right? Nobody buys the small drink. Everybody buys the medium.
Exactly.
It's less expensive by the small, but everybody buys. Nobody's going for the cheapest, but they want to know what's the cheapest.
Yeah. So when I asked, so then I'm like, okay, so if it's, I said, as long as you're price competitive, are you in the game? Yeah, we're in the game. All right. So what's the next thing that they really want, or what frustrates them about every concrete subcontractor out there? They all immediately knew that answer. It was schedule flexibility. They all want schedule flexibility, and it's really hard, right? And I said, okay, how? So we've already gone through and listed all your competitors. How are any of these companies at schedule flexibility? And they all unanimously go, they all suck. I went, okay. I said, how are you guys at schedule flexibility? Oh, we suck.
At least they're honest.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay,
consistent.
So, yeah. Well, so it was like, so we spent the time then figuring out, well, is it so difficult to do that nobody can do it and that's why everybody sucks? Or is there something you could do differently that would differentiate you?
Sure.
And they were able to find that thing.
Yeah.
That could really differentiate them and turn them around.
Don, right now, there's the subject of diversity, okay, that's going on in common conversation today.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on that? How important is diversity? What should companies be doing in terms of strategic planning with that in mind?
Well, I do, one of the things about growing up in LA, is you are exposed to every culture there is, right? And,
Absolutely.
And, I didn't realize I was so open-minded until I went outside of LA and went, wow, these people are really closed-minded. Yeah. So to me, it's very important. And sometimes you have to go beyond just what you think in order to really improve your your inclusion and improve your employee engagement, and you think that, well, everybody's happy because nobody's complaining. Well, have you really sat down with them and really asked? So I'm actually in an alliance of trainers where we have several that specialize in that particular area of diversity and inclusion. So, if it's really a challenging topic for a company, I'll bring in some of my colleagues from that alliance, rather, because it's like, I'm an old white guy. What can I say?
No, but you're also an open-minded guy.
Yes.
Who doesn't seem to have any problems interacting with diverse communities.
Well, and I guess I got exposed to that primarily at HP because, they were very intentional about hiring, all cultures and genders and, orientations and whatever. And it was, all I cared about is, hey, if you do your job and, you're not a pain in the ass to work with, this is all good. Right? So I was, I always had great experiences with all of my colleagues at HP. So it was like, this is really important, and people would talk about, it came up several times in my CEO peer group about, well, how do we deal with this? So I would talk to some of my colleagues in the alliance and say, well, they say, well, you got to like really drill down with your employees and find out if they think there are improvements to be made. And that's a starting point.
I dare say that seems to be a commonality of all the successful major Fortune 500 companies nowadays, is that they're really diverse. I mean, you might see some of anybody at the head and all through the organization, you'll find diversity within the community.
Yeah, and one of the things I learned from the Alliance was, that the key skill was emotional intelligence. That was the key skill for the managers, was like, are you able to recognize your own emotions, to keep them under control, to recognize the emotions of your colleagues and create an environment where people are comfortable expressing differing opinions. To me, I always found that, business ideas, are to be challenged. They're not personal. This is not my idea. This is my thought. Mm-hmm. But, if somebody's got a better thought, or if somebody sees flaws in my thoughts, I want to know them.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And that's a very important lesson right there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So earlier you mentioned trends. And so we live in a rapidly changing world. One fad will last a couple of months and then it's out and on to the next. So I'm curious, how do you advise and work with companies that are resistant to that change, who want to keep, we work so hard on this, we want to keep with it. And it's like, well, but the world's not staying there.
What I have found to be the most effective at getting any business owner to open their minds is data. If you can give them data that this is not my opinion. Here's some data, right? Consider this, right? I've worked with a couple of different companies. I remember there's one company I worked with, and they did upgrades at gas station pumps. And a couple of years back, there was a state mandate that all pumps had to be upgraded to this new environmentally compliant, equipment, right? So their business was just like going gangbusters, right? And it's like, but the compliance date was, 6 months away, and it's like, hey guys, when this comes, your business is going to drop. and they did not want to hear that, and it's like,
wow,
and I saw the same thing in the solar industry, right? It's like solar clients, okay, you're getting rebates, things are selling, 30% rebates, that's going to stop. When that stops, your business is going to take a hit. So you got to be ready for that.
Mm-hmm.
We talked earlier in the intro, actually, I mentioned image perception, right? And a lot of business owners, they approach, they want to be seen a certain way, and they want to be careful about, letting themselves out, their own personalities out, in public or in business atmospheres or whatever. And I was saying that you seem to be a little bit of the antithesis of that. I mean, do you have any thoughts on that, and like business owners who are putting on versus those that don't, and the success of them?
Yes, I do. So my philosophy is that what's more important is the company culture and the company purpose, right? So a lot of times if I start like a strategic planning process early on, I say, so what's the purpose of your company, right? And I give them some multiple choice, and they pick, I want to make money. Well, okay, that's great. I get that, However, how many of your employees are motivated to come to work every day so you can make more money? Mm-hmm. That's not going to motivate them. How many of your customers are going to want to buy from you because you want to make more money? That's not why they're going to buy from you. So you have to define your purpose in something. I said employees want to work at an organization where they somehow are making the world a better place, right? Whatever that is, right? So if you're doing solar, it's easy to be able to explain how you're making the world a better place and why your employees could be motivated and engaged by that. But if in your mind it's just about you making more money, that's not going to work. So it's getting them to look at it from their employees' perspective and defining their purpose and how they are making the world a better place. That I always emphasize is much more important than your personality or the car you drive or, the clothes you wear or any of that stuff.
As we're doing this podcast, I'm learning that to be a successful business owner, it can't be all about the money. Everyone's saying it's about my family, it's about my values, it's about my morals, it's about helping people. And, money is a part of it, of course, but every single business owner has said, I am successful because I have a different attitude. It's not about the money.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was taught how to manage at HP, when I went through their management development program, I really bought into it. Part of it was because of my, kind of my religious orientation and wanting to, make everybody, like everybody and all that kind of stuff. But I got so much more out of my departments because I cared about, I genuinely cared about the people in my department.
Yeah.
And knowing what was important to them and how I could help them achieve that, and how I could tie that into the company goals. HP started, there was a period there where they were just, here's a broken department. We'll send Don in there to fix it. Like, okay, guys, it's not what I want to do for my whole life.
Yeah.
And they'd send me into departments where I knew nothing about what they did.
Mm-hmm.
But go fix it.
Yeah.
Right.
So it became more interpersonal at that point.
Yeah,
I mean, you just had to kind of
exactly.
You were the psychologist, basically.
Well, I was the facilitator. It was like, okay, you guys know, to me the biggest, in corporations and larger corporations, the biggest failure is management getting out of touch with what's going on in the front line.
That's right.
Right, and all I would do is go in there and tap into the people on the front lines.
That's all you needed to do.
What's going on? How do we fix this? And they would, we need to do this. Okay, I'll help you do that. That's what we're going to do. I don't know crap about what you do, but
right.
But I'm going to do a rapid fire with you. Okay. Just three of them real quick. And this could be a versus. This could be an and or. Cutting cost and or increasing profit. What are your thoughts?
cutting costs is a tool towards increasing profits, but the primary tool towards increasing profits is growing revenues.
Beautiful. Difference between physical growth and revenue growth. You hear a lot of folks, I want more locations, I want to get big, versus versus revenue growth.
To me, it's all about profit growth, right? So it's like, okay, do I have one location? Is it profitable? Then we'll replicate. If you can't make this one profitable, why have 3? You're just going to lose money faster, right?
Hiring the right people versus or firing the wrong people.
So here's whenever somebody exits my CEO peer group, I say, what's your biggest takeaway from, you've been in this group for 8 years, right? And they go, I hire too fast and I fire too slow. They all say the same thing. It's like, it's like when you have a problem, fix that problem. If you can't develop that person and get them, to turn around, then you have to terminate them. It's not working and it's a headache. And I can't tell you the number of, there was one session in my group where this woman, CEO, $27 million company, I forget how many employees she had. She would come in every month and complain about this one employee, right?
Every month.
Every month. It's like, oh, this person is driving me crazy. It was like, oh my God, So finally she came in, and the whole group said, I'll change her name, right? Said, Susan, you need to leave this meeting right now. You need to go back to your office and you need to fire that person and don't come back until you've done that. And she was like, oh, no, you guys, no, we're serious.
Oh, no.
Goodbye. See you next month, hopefully.
We're tired of hearing about it.
We're tired of hearing about it, And then it was like, it's amazing how the organization, just suddenly gets so much better overnight when you get rid of a cancer.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna take you back to school. We're gonna go back to school for just a second. A lot of people, go to university to major in business, learn all the business techniques. They want to be a good entrepreneur. They're gonna apply these techniques to their real world. And so we ask, does it work? You take the textbook and you go into the real world. Is it working? So we go into the specifics. And so one thing that teachers will say is, you have to measure your success. As you move forward, you have to sit down and look at, am I being successful based off of my own standards of what success means to me? So I'm curious, what does success mean to you? How do you measure it?
So I'm a huge believer in metrics.
Okay.
You got to measure everything, but
The math guy.
Yeah, exactly. But there's always one metric that, to me, if you can combine everything into one key metric that kind of gets it all. And so for me, that metric is referral percentage. What percent of my clients will refer me to somebody else, right? Because that kind of measures everything, right? And as long as I'm profitable, and while I'm doing that, it doesn't do any good to get referred if you're losing money, right? Hey, this guy's really cheap, Hire him, right? So to me, that but I'm a huge believer in metrics. I work with individuals in organizations to define their own metrics for their own position, and get their manager to buy into whatever that metric is. So you're all on the same page. Right?
Okay.
This is my metric, and we both agree that this is my metric. And I kind of started that because when I got recruited away from HP and went to that other company, my boss, and I was like, I want to know exactly how I get my bonus. I want a formula for my bonus. When I do, what is this? What are the 3 components? So I developed this thing and said, got him to sign it and say, okay, now I know I got this up on my billboard. This is what I do. And if I do this, the company benefits and I benefit.
Awesome.
So
Awesome. Go ahead.
I'd like to know what your take is on what the effect of COVID is going to be on small business. Small business, I mean, we see them going, gone. But we also see on the other side a lot of people coming out of corporate or coming out of larger businesses, and they're opening stores. When I say stores, I don't mean stores per se, but opening businesses.
Yeah.
What do you think we're going to get? We're going to get a negative, or we're going to get a positive here?
I think, I think there will be a positive, but I think it's very long term. I think it's going to take, I have a friend who works in she works for Marriott, and she says they're projecting that they won't be back to where they were pre-COVID until 2024. And I'm just going, wow, that's, and she's like, they laid off, X thousands of people.
Sure.
She didn't get laid off. I'm like, oh, but it's like, wow. So I do think that there will be, so one of the things that, with people working from home, they're like, well, I'm working from home, what else can I do, or so people are more open to, but there are, it's interesting because I've looked at like SBA loan applications, and front and center is, okay, how susceptible to COVID is this business, and what's your backup plan? How are you working around it? And if you don't have good answers, then you're like, oh, I better rethink this.
A lot of times we talk on this podcast about networking, and you do something, and you've mentioned it a couple of times, the inner circle. Can you tell us a little bit more about that inner circle? Because that's kind of a peer group kind of.
That's the CEO peer group that I've mentioned.
Awesome.
That's the name
amazing.
of it is Inner Circle.
Yeah.
Right? And it's, so what it is, and I found this, in getting referred to people, and you work with a business owner and they're like, well, what do you know? And how are you going to help me? And I'm smarter than you anyway. And that attitude. And I say, well, I have this CEO peer group, right? So that's like, 9 to 12 CEOs. Some companies are bigger than yours. Some are smaller. Some are growing faster. They're different industries. But you bring your challenges, or your ideas or things you want feedback on to that group. And I find that I'm sure that those 10 are a lot smarter than you. So yeah, I'll sign up for that group, right? So that they're open to hearing. And then when they start to get consistent feedback, like, one of our check-in procedures is on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you personally? Where are you in your business? And where are you with your vision? So the new members come in and go, vision? Well, what do you mean by that? Well, what's your vision for the company? Well, I don't know. I haven't really thought about that. Well, okay. Well, you might have some homework to do. You're going to answer that question sooner or later. So Inner Circle, that group is helps business owners get. And, sometimes the interesting thing is they get conflicting feedback.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, okay, well, these 3 people say I ought to do this, and these 4 people say I ought to do not that. Or if you've ever watched Shark Tank, and then somebody will say, well, you should do this with the business. And, well, I totally disagree with that guy, and it's like, and that's real life, right? So then it's like, okay, well, now you've got a couple of opinions that you have to sort through. How are you going to sort through that? And figure out what you think is the right answer for your business. But, and I always like that when there's diversity, right? Difference of opinion. It's like, okay, well, shoot, it's not that simple, is it?
That's awesome. Yeah. And that's one way, right, to get advice from others, right? And then with you being, the strategic planning guy, you're there and you can be the mediator. You can give great advice too. But a lot of these guys, And actually, we were talking to Mark Gallo last week, and he was talking about having a business coach for a while. And just that outside looking in thing, it can be helpful. And I'm sure you believe that. But do you see a lot of businesses doing that? Is that something that's common?
It's not as common as I think it should be.
You think it should be?
Yeah, I think, and they always, I've heard coaches give talks and say, look at every successful athlete. How many coaches do they have, right?
Yeah.
So whatever it is you want to be good at,
But is it worth the expense? I mean, it can be. I mean, as they're trying to grind along, and but now you've got to spend this money to get some advice from the outside when you've been studying all along, trying to make your business successful. You thought you were going to make it happen,
right? I always tell people you have to give it 9 months. You got to give it 9 months, right? At the end of 9 months, if you don't think you're getting a return on this investment, then for sure drop out, right? But I've never had anybody drop out after 9 months because they, and it has to be more than a month or two because you may not have a substantial issue that you really need good feedback on, But I've had situations where somebody would, they would say, well, I'm thinking of doing this. And then somebody else would say, all right, if I had all the money back that I spent on that, I'd be retired, right? Don't go down that path and spend that money, And it would be like, okay, you just got, a huge return on your investment.
Sure.
Just from talking to that person who already tried that and didn't work in their business, right?
Yeah.
Now that's your business, okay?
Yes.
Let's go ahead and plug it.
Yeah, so that's called Inner Circle. It's a CEO peer group, and it's for CEOs that want a diversity of opinions on things that they're working with in their business, right? So so sometimes, for example, it might be, well, I've got a problem with this manager. What do I do, right? And so sometimes the answers, there's this one guy in the room, his answer to everything is fire the SOB. Okay. Well, that's not always the right answer, right? But he says that, we all laugh. And say, that's Mike, he's gonna say that, But then, it'll be, well, okay. So we'll probe questions like, how long has this been going on? Is this a new thing or has it been going on forever? What have you done already to try to address it? Is there anything you think will work? Would they listen to a coach? Would they listen to, have you put them in a program? And so usually we come up with, okay, well, here's the recommended course of action now. And then we always ask them, well, what are you going to do? So here's what we recommend. What are you going to do? And they might say, well, I'm not going to do what you guys recommend. I'm going to do this. Okay. Right. When we come back next month, tell us if it's working.
Yeah.
So that's the other part about that group is the accountability, follow-up, which is, okay, you said you were going to do this. Did you do it? And did it work?
That's a good idea. That's good.
One last, before, as we're getting closer towards the end here, I wanted to talk a little bit about the mergers and acquisitions. I know, last time I saw you, it was not too long after I moved into this office. We sat down and, we had a sip of wine or two. Yeah. And we talked about, or a bottle or two.
Who's counting?
We talked about mergers and acquisitions. We talked about your approach to it that differs from how a lot of people see mergers and acquisitions. A lot of people look at it and just say, hey, I'm going to give you a number. You want to come buy my business or not? And you had a different approach.
Well, and it came from, when I was with the company after HP, DH Technology, where we did acquisitions. And, and what I've learned in working specifically in that area this year is that there are different methodologies for valuing and pricing a business, right? And some methodologies work well with really large companies. Well, if you're publicly held, you can look at other publicly held companies and blah, blah, blah. Well, for most small businesses, that's irrelevant, and then there's, so my preferred methodology is future cash flow projections. So I look at, okay, give me 3 years worth of revenue. I want to look at it by customer. Okay, well, here's a customer that's been going up. Are they going to keep going up? Or here's a customer that went away. Why did they go away? We kind of screwed up here or whatever. You learn a lot, right? Mm-hmm. And then you look at all the operational costs. Are they going to stay the same? Is something going to go away? Is something going to go double all of a sudden? Oh, gee, you own the business and you've been charging, a sub-market rate rent, and that's why your profit looks better. So if you sell me the business, are you going to keep the rent? Oh, no, I'm going to double the rent right away. Okay, all right. So, so it's all, future cash flow projections. And when you identify issues in the business, then it's, okay, so how are you going to fix that issue? So, things have been stalled, so that's because you don't have a salesperson. So if we hire a salesperson and I put that into the costs, so what's going to happen to the revenue and what's going to happen to the costs and how is the profitability going to get affected? So I'm a huge believer in the future cash flow projections, which not everyone is, right? Mm-hmm. So I've met with different owners trying to sell, and there's business brokers that have their methodology and different organizations that use different methodologies for pricing. And I go, well, okay, just so you know, I'm coming at it from future cash flow projections, right?
Period.
So all my questions are going to be relative to that, whether this is going to work or not, Yeah. And but it's different if you're, like I laugh, it's like, okay, I'm not buying a company, I'm buying a job, right?
Right.
So if you're just buying a job, okay, well, all right, you can look at it from that perspective, right? You're just taking, this guy has been working his butt off and he wants out, and you're just going to take it over, and they want you to pay 3 times his salary as part of the acquisition cost. Okay, so I'm going to pay my salary for 3 years. Okay, what if I just set that aside and did something else with that? Do I have to work so hard? For this? So
fisherman.
So it's mantra time. And what that means is Zeke has these business mantras, sort of words that he abides by in order to be successful. So we read them off, and you give your thoughts on it. And I think this one really applies to you.
It's okay to say that it's horrible. It doesn't make any sense
is from
at all.
Zeke. Oh, yeah.
So
Bowing my head.
we'll see how it goes. All right. It's just as important to tell businesses the bad news as you do the good news.
Oh, 100%. 100%. You have to face, I always want to know, what's the downside? What's the downside? What's the worst case? What's plan B? I want to know that up front. Yeah. So I also, when I work with a company, I always want to talk to the people on the front line to find out, what are they bitching about? Because it's so important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Has it gotten easier over the years to tell them the bad news? Like, did it start out kind of hard, or were you just like, I can do it, no problem?
Oh, no, yeah. I've always, I got no problem. It's like, you can hate me, it's okay. Just pay me.
I'm just the messenger.
I'm just the messenger.
I'm here to pick up the check.
That's right. If I tell you that, 30% of your employees think this, as opposed to, well, I talked to this person in the hallway and they were bitching about that. Oh, yeah, I know that person. Yeah, I can ignore it because it's that person. But when you have data to say, no, I talked to everybody, right? And 30% of your employees agree with that person, then it has a different context.
Okay. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Something I pulled off your website. Are you working on your business or are you tied up in your business?
Yeah. Yeah. So, one of the things that is key to management, and the higher up in management, the more it's key, is thinking about the future. Mm-hmm. I just saw this interview with Warren Buffett, right? Mm-hmm. He was talking about time management. And he was saying how important it was to spend time thinking.
Right, right.
And if you're just doing, some people measure their effectiveness and their productivity by how busy they are, but that's not always the right metric, right? So it's so it's like how much, when you're an owner, you need to spend X amount of time. If people are like, oh, I remember I first got exposed to this when I was at HP, and I'd go meet with customers, and I would say, so where are you going to be 3 years from now? How can we help you get there? And they would look at me like, I don't even know where I'm going to be next week. What are you talking about 3 years from now? And I'd be like, wow, how do you run a business like that? I don't get it. Right. So working on your business and not, being busy is critical. And I always start with clients and say, well, look, spend Friday afternoon just thinking long term. It's the start there, right? And try to build up. So maybe you're gonna take a day a month and just go off site and think, or you're gonna take a couple of key advisors or your management team or your, whatever, and you're going to just think about how do we make this thing better.
Yeah.
Don, I got a question, and it pertains to our theme. Okay. Same business, different day. What does that mean to you? Do you have any thoughts about same business, different day?
So what strikes me, and maybe it's sensitivity to the COVID thing, and the overused word of pivoting, right? But it's to me, it's like, okay, this is our business, but it was like that concrete company. It's like having this realization that there's something that could make a big difference if they changed this one little thing. It would make a big difference. So that's what I think about when I say different day. It's like, we're still in the concrete business.
Yeah.
We're still doing this, but, the owner's pocketbook is not the number one motivator for employees. Oh, there's a aha moment, right? Or this is what's really important to our customers and how we can deliver it better than our competitors. There's an
absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Yeah. So when I think of that, I think of like aha moments that can really change your direction.
Okay. Do you also think of same business, different day? What motivates you to come to work tomorrow? We know why you came today. How are you going to get up for tomorrow?
Well, that to me goes back to the purpose, right? So, like for me, my purpose is helping business owners, create that business that they originally envisioned, which had some profitability and some free time and some other components that aren't existing, right? So my motivator, my purpose is in helping business owners create that thing. And when they realize that they're on that path, they get really excited, and then that's very exciting for me, right? So the consistent, the day, getting up every day and doing your thing, to me that's purpose, And if you understand what your purpose is, and it's important to you and valuable to you, and this is something I am excited about. You can chase your purpose for a lifetime.
Right.
Sure.
Helping people is making the world a better place. However you're doing that, that's something you can do for your lifetime.
Do you have a lesson that you would teach your younger self?
Don't be an engineer. No.
You wasted 20 years.
Yeah, that works. Is that right?
No, I was, I had a great childhood. My parents, really, developed a lot of values in me that I still carry. I would. One of the things I think that, I guess early in my career, I was very focused on success as the world defined it and as my company defined it. And now it's more about success as my family defines it.
Yeah.
And I realized that, if there was a choice to make, work an extra hour or go home an hour early, I always worked an extra hour,
Yeah.
And now I'm like, nah, I can wait.
Yeah.
My grandkids are here or something like that. And I heard a talk, what was it? And that he was differentiating between, what he said, resume values and eulogy values. So what are the kind of values that you want spoken about, you qualities at your eulogy versus on your resume?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
And it was like, well, okay, yeah, that kind of captures it,
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That is wonderful.
Okay, so now let's talk to advice to the young entrepreneurs. The young entrepreneurs listening who might be listening to you, and they're starting to identify. They're starting to realize that they can take a leap. What kind of advice would you give to them on our way out?
So I guess my first question to them would be: Is your business idea? Is it an idea, right? And if it's an idea, that's wonderful. But just because you don't see an alternative doesn't mean that there's an alternative out there, right? So back to that competition, right? Really understand the market before you launch a business. I remember working with this one CEO. They had been in business for several, it was a startup and they were going to do this thing, and they had this 85-page business plan that I read and went, I don't get it, and then, so it's like, I said, well, who's the competitors? And they listed them, and I went, well, so how are you better? Well, they didn't really know enough about the competitors to say, right? And when I evaluated the competition, I said, your business is going to fail. You have no value proposition, right? So I've seen that a lot. People, young entrepreneurs with an idea, make sure you evaluate, the marketplace for that idea. And then for those that are already in business or that's not an idea based, it's service or something else, really make sure it fits in with your purpose, something that gets you up every morning, saying I can keep doing this, and that it's providing for your family, and that kind of thing. So it's meeting your financial needs as well as your motivational needs and things like that.
I like that. He didn't say quit,
No.
everybody. He said if you have an idea, make sure you cultivate it and get it, get it going and know who your competition is.
Yeah.
But he didn't say throw it away.
No, don't throw it away. No.
And business strategy.
Yeah, well, and with that, I remember with that one client that I mentioned, we're at lunch after like a 2.5-day strategy session, and I said, "You're gonna fail." You would ask me, "Is it hard to tell?" No. You're gonna fail, dude. Here, let me show you the competition and why you're not as good. Even your vision for where you want to go is not as good as what they're already doing. So you're going nowhere. And so then he said, "Well, what do we do?" And I said, "Well, that's a whole different question." I was like, "Man, I don't have an answer for that."
How much do you get?
You didn't tell him that you need to pay for lunch.
I said, it's going to take me. I said, I don't know. I said, maybe I can come up with an answer. Maybe I can't. I don't know. Right now, I know enough to know that it's going to take a lot of work to figure out whether we can come up with a strategy that has the opportunity to be successful or not.
That's right. All right. That was Don Sando, strategicresultsgroup.com. Alyssa, you want to give the credit? I'm sorry, Don, you want to say anything else about your business on our way out?
Absolutely.
Gosh, I don't know.
Who's Jim?
Jim is my brother.
That's what we thought.
Yeah. He's my brother. He was
Another genius.
Yeah,
I've read about him.
He was originally a client, and then he said, "Well, I really like what you're doing. Can I join you?" I'm like, "Sure, come on board." So,
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You got a good staff too.
Yeah.
You didn't tell him that his business was failing.
No.
All right, if you want to get in contact with Don, his website is www.strategicresultsgroup.com, and you can email him at donsando@strategicresultsgroup.com. That's Don Sando, DONSANDO @strategicresultsgroup.com. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, Don.
Thank you, Alyssa. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Don.
Yeah, Bill.
All
It's been a
right.
pleasure.
That was great.